Every 1st of January was like a nightmare. The Ikeji family sat in terror as they watched their only child lie in bed without waking. Nothing they did could wake her up, and they wondered why this always happened on her birthday. Their daughter Tamara was only 10 years old, a bright and beautiful girl whose laughter filled every corner of their home. But every New Year's Day, the very day she was born, she slipped into a deep death-like sleep. No amount of shouting, shaking or crying ever worked. Doctors came and went. Pastors prayed. Prophets anointed. But Tamara remained still, her face calm as if she was only dreaming. Her parents always dreaded her birthdays, while others celebrated with parties and cakes. Her parents all sat in silence, watching over their sleeping daughter, counting every breath and praying that she wakes again. By midnight of every 2nd January, Tamara would suddenly open her eyes, weak, dizzy and confused, but she remembered nothing. She always smiled faintly and asked her mother, "Mama, did I miss my birthday again?" And every year, Sarah would force a smile through her tears and say, "No, my child, we are just saving it for tomorrow." But in truth, the fear was eating her alive. The doctors called it temporary coma, but nothing they did worked to wake her up on her birthday. Tamara, since she was born, never celebrated her birthday. Because of this, their neighbors called her a witch and warned their children not to play with her. Even the children at school called her Sleeping Beauty because they heard about her sleeping episodes. Some even bullied her in school, saying that Tamara did what she did on purpose so as not to celebrate her birthday in school like the other children. On one particular day, a girl named Temi refused to give Tamara her birthday party pack, saying that Tamara did not deserve it because she had never celebrated her birthday with them. Tamara went home sad that day. She asked her mother why her life had to be so difficult, but her mother pulled her close and assured her that one day all this would be history. Sarah could see the pain in her daughter's eyes, a kind of sadness too heavy for a 10-year-old to carry. She sat up all night, thinking of what next to do. Sarah had consulted the best medical doctors in the country. She had paid for extensive tests, subjected her daughter to numerous medical examinations, but yet the same thing happened every year. Sarah remembered the day her daughter was born. It was 1st of January, at exactly midnight, the very first baby of the year. Everyone called her a miracle baby, but as the years went by, that miracle began to transform into a nightmare. Sarah had to resign from her job in a bid to find a solution to her daughter's problem. Her husband, though supportive, was barely around. He lived in a different state and only came visiting once in 6 months. Sarah often wondered why Ifeanyi was always gone. He claimed it was work. Yet, sometimes his excuses felt too rehearsed, the way he avoided video calls and the strange background noises that she heard at times. Then came the strange calls in the middle of the night. Once, Sarah woke up to hear him whispering, "I already did what was required. I gave you my daughter, so what else do you want from me?" When she asked about it the next morning, he denied it completely, saying that he only received the call from a wrong number. However, Sarah knew that something else was at play, but what she did not understand was what her husband meant by "I gave you my daughter" and who he was talking to. Filled with so much curiosity, Sarah began to ransack his things, hoping to find a clue. But after hours of searching, she found nothing. Her sister Amaka called in that moment, and Sarah could not help but share her worries with her. "Do you think that Ifeanyi is behind all that's happening to Tamara?" she asked her sister Amaka, who could not help but warn Sarah to be careful. "Is it not strange that your husband Ifeanyi only visits you and Tamara twice in a year? What kind of a father stays away from his family for that long, if not that he's hiding something? Remember the day you gave birth? Ifeanyi disappeared with the baby for a few minutes, claiming that he lost his way in the hospital." Sarah stood there terrified. She tried so hard not to believe that her husband had something to do with their daughter's issue. Hours passed, and Ifeanyi called to inform her that he had to make an urgent trip. "I'll be back before you know it," he said to Sarah, who forced a weak smile, hiding the unease that was already building up in her chest. Sarah reminded him of Tamara's birthday, which was right around the corner. She had planned to celebrate her daughter's birthday for the very first time this year and needed him to be around for it. Filled with so much anxiety, Sarah decided to preoccupy herself with the birthday preparations. She called the baker and ordered a massive pink cake. Sarah bought gift bags and stuffed it with gift items for her daughter's classmates. She did all this terrified, knowing that Tamara's birthday was only a few weeks away. Tamara was so delighted to hear the good news. She could not believe that finally she was going to celebrate her birthday like other children. She went to school the next morning and could not shut up about it. However, some mean girls in school teased her. They asked if she wanted to initiate them into her evil coven, and Tamara could not help but cry. She returned home from school that day, sad, as she asked her mother if truly she was a witch. Sarah's heart broke on hearing this. She knelt before her daughter, cupping her small face in her trembling hands. "No, my child," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "You are not a witch. You are a blessing. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Tamara sniffed. "Then why does this keep happening to me, Mama? Why do I sleep when everyone else is awake?" Sarah swallowed hard, unsure of how to answer. "One day, my love, one day, we'll all understand. But for now, let's focus on your birthday. This year will be different." As the new year approached, Sarah fought back her tears. She called the school, arranging for a small celebration in her home on the 2nd of January, when she knew that Tamara would be awake. Sarah invited all the children in her daughter's class. She designed colorful invitation cards with golden stars and pink ribbons, carefully writing each child's name by hand. Tamara helped her seal the envelopes with such excitement that Sarah's heart warmed, but yet, deep down, a cold fear rushed through her spine. Sarah could not live through another 1st of January. The thought of her daughter, sleeping all through the day, terrified her in a way that she could not explain. For 2 weeks, the house was filled with laughter and preparations. Sarah decorated the living room with balloons and ribbons. She hung a banner in their living room that read, "Happy 11th birthday, Tamara." The baker delivered a massive pink cake, shaped like a crown, and the dining table was covered with party packs, each neatly arranged with chocolates, toys, and several gift items. Tamara could not contain her joy. "Mama," she said, swelling in her dress, "I can't wait for everyone to come. Even Temi said she'll come this time." Sarah smiled and began to speak to her, saying, "See, I told you everything will be fine," she said to Tamara, who smiled in excitement. However, that night, Sarah could not sleep. Her husband called from Lagos to inform her that he would not make it to the party. His company sent him on an urgent trip to Port Harcourt, and Sarah did not know what to do. She felt her world crumble because her husband was the only one who usually stayed calm whenever Tamara's strange sleep episode happened. He was the one who reminded her to breathe and have faith. Now he wasn't going to be there. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, worried, her hands trembling as she dialed his number again and again, but Ifeanyi did not pick up her calls. Tears welled up in her eyes as she pondered on what to do. "God, please, not this time. I can't do this alone," she said as she finally decided to call her younger sister Amaka, who lived 2 towns away. "Amaka, please, I need you to come," Sarah said over the phone as she explained her current situation to her. Her sister Amaka did not hesitate. "I'll be there tomorrow morning, Sarah. Don't worry, you won't go through this alone," Amaka said as she assured Sarah, who tried so hard to be calm. Amaka arrived the next morning and met her sister, who had just returned from dropping Tamara in school. They spent hours talking as Amaka received a call from their daughter's school. Her daughter Tamara fought with another student over a comment they made to her. Sarah drove to the school as fast as she could. She arrived at the school and met Tamara, who was sitting alone on a bench outside the principal's office, her face red and her eyes swollen from crying. Sarah went in to meet the principal, who began to narrate all that happened. "Mrs. Ikeji, your daughter got into a fight today. Apparently, some of the students mocked her again about her birthday." Sarah's lips trembled as she asked what they said to her daughter. Before the principal could speak, Tamara blotted out through her tears, They said I'm cursed, that my mother gave me to spirits so that I will sleep forever. One of them even said that my birthday is the day that witches gather. Sarah's knees went weak. She sat beside her daughter, hugging her tightly as she began to speak. Don't listen to them, my love. You are not cursed, she said to Tamara, who found comfort in her words. However, deep down, Sarah was not sure if she believed her own words. That evening, she sat with her sister Amaka in the living room, the air heavy with silence. Amaka sighed as she began to speak. Sarah, this thing is getting out of hand. Maybe we should call a pastor, she said to Sarah, who brushed off the idea, saying that most pastors out there were fake. She narrated an encounter that she once had with a pastor who she brought to pray for her daughter 5 years ago. Sarah narrated how the pastor requested for 100,000 naira for special prayers. Desperate to see her daughter healed, Sarah rushed to do the transfer and mistakenly added an extra zero, making it 1 million naira. She approached the pastor to request a refund of 900,000 naira, but the pastor refused, stating that any money given to God should never be returned. The pastor went on to reveal that God does not refund blessings. Amaka's face twisted in anger as she began to speak. Sarah, you should have told me. That man scammed you. I know, Sarah whispered, but I was desperate. I just wanted my daughter to wake up normally. That's why I let it go, hoping that the pastor knew what he was doing. He promised that the episodes will not return. But when the next year came, Tamara fell into a very deep sleep on her birthday. It was then that I vowed never to allow any pastor into our home again. Hours passed and the whole neighborhood was live with merry. The whole world could not wait to cross into the new year. They all jubilated happily, while Sarah sat there terrified. Her daughter had already gone to bed, smiling as though she could sense the new year approaching. Sarah sat by her bedside as she whispered prayers underneath her breath, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Her sister Amaka sat quietly in the corner, twisting her fingers nervously as she tried to convince her sister that this year would be different. Sarah shook her head as tears poured down her eyes. That's what I tell myself every year, but it ends up happening like a vicious circle. In that moment, fireworks began. Families in the neighborhood began to count down to the new year. However, inside the EKG home, the air was thick with dread. Tamara laid on her bed asleep. Sarah forced a smile as she stroked her daughter's hair. You wake up on time, my love, she said, but deep down, fear clawed at her chest. As the clock struck 12, shouts of Happy New Year echoed through the streets. Fireworks painted the sky, but Sarah barely noticed. She was staring at her daughter, whose breathing had suddenly slowed. Tamara, she whispered, as tears poured down her eyes. But her daughter's chest rose once, then again, before her body went completely still. Sarah gasped. No, not again. She shook her. Tamara, please wake up, she said repeatedly as Amaka ran into the living room panicking. I can't do this again, Amaka. I can't. Amaka grabbed her hand, assuring her that they would get through it. Just breathe, she said to Sarah, but Sarah could not breathe. The sound of her daughter's stillness filled the room like a scream that she could not silence. Her husband called, trying to comfort her, but Sarah could not be comforted. She was unusually worried and could not understand why. January 2nd arrived, and Sarah could not wait for her daughter to wake. She sat by her bedside, her heart trembling as she watched Tamara, who did not seem to wake. Hours passed, and yet Tamara was still asleep. This looked so unusual, as Tamara always woke up in the early hours of the morning. Sarah began to panic. She sat beside her daughter's bed, her face swollen from crying. Her hands trembled as she dialed her husband's number, but no answer. Her sister Amaka paced the room as she asked Sarah what they were going to do, as the children would soon be there for the party. Sarah, the children will soon start coming. What are we going to tell them? She asked Sarah, who shook her head confused, praying that none of the children showed up. Sarah could not bear the humiliation that would follow if the children arrived and found Tamara still asleep. Hours passed, and to her utter shock, none of the parents or children showed up to the party. Although Sarah felt bad about it, she was happy that no one had to witness the terror that was happening in her home. She stared at her daughter, heartbroken, as she pondered on what to do. Suddenly, the doorbell rang and Sarah could hear her heart beating through her chest. Her sister looked at her confused as she rushed to the door to check who it was. She peeked outside and found a woman standing with a young girl dressed in white. "Good evening," she said politely. "I'm Mrs. Labake. My daughter Tope was invited to the party." Amaka forced a smile. "Oh, yes, please come in." As soon as Mrs. Labake entered, she froze. Her gaze darted towards Tamara's room as her expression changed. Sarah walked out of the hallway, looking exhausted. "You're welcome," she said faintly as Labake nodded slowly, still staring towards the room. "Is that your daughter lying there?" Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief as she asked her how she knew. "I can feel it," Labake said softly, revealing that she was a pastor. "I am a pastor, and sometimes God shows me things." Sarah blinked, confused, as she asked her what she meant. Labake took a deep breath and asked her a question that she never saw coming. "What did you do with your daughter's placenta?" The room went still. Even Amaka's breath caught in her throat as they both stared at her in disbelief. Sarah's mouth went dry. "Her placenta?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Labake nodded slowly, her eyes calm but piercing. "Yes, the day she was born. Where did you keep it? What did you do with it?" Sarah swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "I didn't handle it myself. I was too weak from the surgery. I told my sister here to take care of it. I told her to burn it when she arrives home." Amaka looked down to the ground, guilt flashing across her face as she began to speak. "The day you gave birth, it was New Year's morning and I was too exhausted. I didn't sleep all night because I was taking care of the baby. So when you told me to go home and burn it, I didn't read so much meaning into it. So I passed through the lonely bush near the old expressway, the one behind St. Peter's Junction, and threw it there." Labake's head snapped up in that instant as she began to speak. "You flung it into that bush?" she repeated, her tone suddenly grave. Amaka nodded weakly. "Yes, I was too tired. All I wanted to do was go home and rest. I didn't know that it was a big deal." Labake exhaled sharply, her face darkening. "That bush is not an ordinary place." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she asked her what she was talking about. Labake turned towards her slowly as she began to speak. "That place, the bush behind St. Peter's Junction, is called the Forbidden Ground. In the days of old, it was on that land that outcasts and evil men buried things they did not want the living to see." Amaka's hands covered her mouth as her knees began to tremble. Sarah staggered backwards, her hands shaking, as she asked if the ground had taken her daughter's placenta. Labake nodded slowly as she began to speak. "Yes, and not just that, it took the life attached to it. The umbilical cord ties a child to life, to breath, to time. When it's cast upon a defiled ground, the child becomes spiritually connected to whatever rules that land." Sarah gasped, clutching her chest. "So that's why she sleeps every New Year's Day?" Labake's expression softened. "Every 1st of January, the earth renews its covenant. It calls her back. The spirits that inhabit that ground summon her soul because her origin, her birthroot, lies within them. Every New Year's Day, your daughter goes where her placenta lies buried." Sarah broke down completely. She fell to her knees, weeping bitterly. "Oh God, my child, what have we done?" Amaka knelt beside her, sobbing as she began to apologize for all that she had done. "I didn't know, Sarah, I swear. I didn't know. Please forgive me." Labake placed a firm hand on both their shoulders. "Crying would not fix it now. We must break the connection to your child now or prepare to lose her forever." Labake in that moment decided to pray. She laid hands on Tamara's body as she began to call her back from where she had been kept bondage by the evil spirits. Labake anointed her with oil as she began to pray. "In the name of Jesus, wherever the soul of this child had been taken, I command her spirit to return now," she said as she intensified her prayer. Even Sarah and Amaka joined in the prayers as the air in the room began to shift. The candles flickered violently, although no windows were open. Labake continued her prayers, her voice growing louder as the prayers intensified. "Every covenant made by mistake, every power that feeds on this child's life, release her now in the name of Jesus," she commanded as Tamara's hand twitched. Then her fingers jerked slightly as she woke up from the evil sleep. Tamara's fingers twitched again and suddenly her eyes fluttered open. "Mama?" she whispered weakly. Sarah froze, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment, she could not move. Then, with a loud cry, she rushed to her daughter's side, clutching her tightly. My baby, you are awake!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face as she began to thank Mrs. Labake for saving her child. Tamara blinked open her eyes as she began to speak. "Mama, I had a dream. I was standing in a dark place with tall trees and people without faces. They called my name, but then a bright woman in white told me to go home, that my mother was waiting. Then I woke up." Sarah's heart broke with gratitude. She held her daughter's face and assured her that she was free. Labake smiled faintly as she began to speak to them. "You must never return to that bush. Ever. The covenant that tied her life to that cursed ground has been destroyed, but you must thank God daily, because many never return from such a bondage." Sarah nodded repeatedly as she promised never to stop thanking God. Labake's daughter approached Tamara to check up on her. She apologized for all that they did to her in school, promising to make it right. Although the other parents did not come for the party, Labake and her daughter celebrated Tamara's first birthday with her. They ensured that Tamara had the time of her life. Days passed and Sarah's joy began to return. She could not believe that her daughter Tamara was finally free. However, Sarah could not help but worry about her husband. He had not called since New Year's Eve, not to ask about Tamara, not to check on the family. His phone was always switched off, and Sarah hoped that he was fine. She tried to convince herself that he was busy, but by the fifth day, she could not take it anymore. She dialed again and again until finally somebody picked up. A woman's voice. "Hello?" Sarah frowned. "Sorry, I'm trying to reach my husband, Ifeanyi KG. Who is this?" The woman's tone sharpened. "Your husband?" "Yes, I'm his wife. Please, can I speak to him?" The woman chuckled coldly. "Listen to me, whoever you are. Stop calling my husband. He's with his family. If you call this number again, I'll report you to the police." Sarah froze as the line went dead. She stood there, shocked as her phone trembled in her hand. Sarah immediately dialed the number back. This time, Ifeanyi picked up and began to plead with her to forgive him. He revealed that he had a family before meeting her and that their relationship was not supposed to happen. Ifeanyi promised to come visiting, but Sarah warned him never to show up at her door. Her heart shattered into a million pieces as she dropped the phone to the ground. The man who she had called her husband, the man who she prayed with, cried with, and built a life with, had been living a double life. Sarah sat on the floor, staring blankly at the wall as tears rolled freely down her cheeks. Her sister Amaka rushed into the room as she asked why she was crying. Sarah informed her sister that her husband Ifeanyi had another family outside, a family that he already had way before meeting her. Everything began to make more sense to her. The unplanned visit, the secret calls, even the conversation that she heard and concluded that was about her daughter was indeed about his other daughter. Sarah could not believe how easily she was fooled. She made up her mind in that instant to focus on her daughter, knowing that doing otherwise would mean wallowing in pain that would only destroy her. From that day forward, Sarah poured all her love and strength into Tamara. She started a small catering business from home, and soon, word spread about her delicious cakes and meals. Tamara, now stronger and full of life, began to thrive again. When she returned to school, something beautiful happened. The same classmates who once mocked her now admired her courage. Temi, the girl who once refused to share her party pack, walked up to her one morning and said shyly, "I'm sorry, Tamara. I didn't know what you were going through." Tamara smiled, her heart light for the very first time. "It's okay," she said. From that day, Tamara was never alone again. She made new friends, Tope, Temi, and Chuka, and every year after that, she celebrated her birthday awake, surrounded by laughter, balloons, and the sound of genuine friendship. The curse was broken, the pain was gone, and in its place grew joy so bright that even the neighbors who once called her a witch began to call her what she truly was, a miracle. The lesson to be learned from this story is that sometimes the battles we face are not just physical but deeply spiritual, and ignorance can turn blessings into bondage. We must be careful with the things we neglect because even small mistakes can carry great consequences. Above all, this story teaches us that a mother's love, faith, and persistence can conquer even the darkest forces. In life, not everyone who poses to be a pastor is truly a pastor, so we should always have a discerning spirit. Never stop praying, never stop believing, and never let people's judgment define your child or your destiny for what is called a curse. Today may be the very miracle that will shine tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the story.